How many people are making choices in their life, not because they want to, but because someone else is forcing that choice on them, and their own choice is being made haram on them, even though Allah never made it haram on them. Allah commanded us to be free. He commanded us to be liberated. When Allah has made something halal, no one has the right to make it haram, not even our families. The Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he loved his wives, and he used to spend equal time with his wives. And one of his wives decided to keep him a little bit longer by getting some honey that she knew he really liked, and he would taste that honey, and he would sit there, and he wouldn't even know that extra time is passing by, and now he's just sitting there spending a little too much time, 5 extra minutes, 10 extra minutes, 15 extra minutes. When he gets to the second wife to spend some time with her, she noticed that she's getting a little less time, and she doesn't want to come out and say, hey, what's going on here? You're late. So she finds another, on social media nowadays they say, tell me I don't want you to spend more time with her without telling me I don't want you to spend more time with her. So our mother, the mother of the believers, tells the Prophet ﷺ, there's a strange smell coming from your mouth. There's a strange smell. What smell was she talking about? The honey. Now the Prophet ﷺ is very sensitive, and he cares about the feelings of his wife. And he says, I will never eat that again. I will never have that honey, because he loves his wife so much. Now, this is something very normal. If your wife says, hey, I don't want you to go there, you say, okay, I promise I will never go there again. You're always watching football. Okay, I'll never watch any football ever again. I promise, I love you so much. And then you say in parentheses, in front of you. But somebody says to you, I feel bad that you're doing something. I feel bad. And you say to yourself, you know what? In order to make you feel better, I'm going to change. I'm going to make something haram on myself, right? Because it'll make you feel better. So you give somebody a part of your rights. And you say, even though Allah is okay with it, Allah is not, there's no sin in eating that honey, but you don't like it, so for you, I'm gonna make a change. Fine. The opening ayah of this surah, Allah reveals an ayah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many ayat did I say I'm gonna talk to you about? Remember something now, something new now. The first ayah is for the Prophet. And then the second ayah is, now that I've told your Prophet, now I'm gonna tell you. The first ayah is for the Prophet ﷺ. The second ayah is for you and me. That's what happens. So the lesson began with Rasulullah and then went to us. Now watch. Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrimu ma ahallallahu lak, tabtaghi mardata azwajik. Prophet, why are you making haram something Allah made halal for you? In order to please or in order to pursue making your spouses happy? Wallahu ghafurur rahim, and Allah is forgiving. Allah is rahim. When Allah mentions Allah is forgiving, Allah says that if you're doing something wrong. Yeah? Don't do this. And the Prophet, when he says, why are you doing this? And then he answers himself, are you doing this because you want to make who happy? Your spouse is happy? You want to make them happy? That's why you're doing it? Well, Allah put a stop to that and said, you can't do that anymore. And Allah has forgiven what happened, Wallahu ghafurur rahim, but this cannot happen again. But if he doesn't eat a little bit of honey, it's not like the mission of Islam is going to fail. It's not like Badr is in trouble or Uhud is in trouble. It's not the end of the world. It's just a little bit of sacrifice for one of his spouses. Why is a whole ayah of the Quran coming down on this tiny little issue? And it's not even ayah number 10 or ayah number 12. It's ayah number what? Ayah number 1. And later on in the surah, way towards the end, he says, Ya ayyuhan nabi jahid al-kuffara wal-munafiqina waghlud alayhim. Prophet, struggle against the kuffar, struggle against the munafiqeen, be harsh with them. The Prophet was the governor of Medina, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He has to deal with people trying to destroy the government from the inside. He's dealing with the enemies from the outside. He's the head of state. He's the general of the military. These are big issues. Big issues later. Right now, don't make honey haram for you. That's issue number one. Isn't that strange? You would think the issue that has to do with national security, the issue that has to do with war, the issue that has to do with government stability, that should be issue number one. And this small little drama situation between a husband and a wife, that can be a later issue, if at all an issue. Why is this number one? And by the way, the surah was not named after the big issue. The surah was named after this, because to Allah, this is a very, very, very big issue. Why is this such a big issue? Quran is guidance for all of us until Judgment Day. Why did Allah take such a small episode between a husband and a wife, and He turned it into the opening of a surah of the Quran until Judgment Day? Because Allah is teaching us a timeless principle of relationships and family problems. Sometimes my father might want to make something haram for me that Allah made halal. And he won't say I'm making it haram. He's just going to say, if you do this, I'll be very disappointed. Right? Allah has no problem with it. The law has no problem with it. Only my dad has a problem with it. Sometimes my wife could say that. Sometimes your husband could say that. Sometimes your siblings could say that. Sometimes your culture could say that. Nothing is wrong with it as far as Allah is concerned. If you did it and you came before Allah on Judgment Day, Allah would have no problem with you. But somebody in your family has a problem with it. And because of their feelings, you deprive yourself from doing something that Allah actually was okay with. By the way, depriving yourself is actually called hirman, from the same word tahrim. Depriving yourself. So I decided to deprive myself. For example, and my wife isn't like this, but if she said, I don't like it when you play basketball. If you love me, you won't play basketball. And I say, okay, because I love you so much, I won't play basketball anymore. Now a part of my soul has just died. Because Allah didn't make it haram, but she made it haram. And even though I'm saying I'm doing this out of love for her, you know what's happening slowly? I'm starting to build a negative feeling towards her. Why cannot she let me do something that makes me happy? Why does she want to have this control over me? What is bothering her so much? Why is this such a problem for her? Maybe she doesn't love me for who I am. Maybe she only loves me for who she wants me to turn into. She doesn't want me as a person. She wants to mold me into some other version that she likes. So this is not about loving me. This is about loving what she wants for me to be. You understand? So in the Instagram language, you need someone who loves you for who you are. Quran already said that much better. Much, much better. The idea is, I cannot sustain a relationship if I keep slicing away parts of myself that Allah did not make haram only to make someone else happy. And by the way, when you do that, many people do that. Millions of people in the world do that. They do that for their husband or their wife. They do that for their parents. They were choosing a career. Their mother said, don't do that career. I don't want you to do that career. Do this career instead. Mom, I hate that career. If you love me, you'll do it. You want your mother to be happy with you or not? You want to go to Jannah or no? Because if your mother's not happy with you, how are you going to go to Jannah? And you're like, oh, doesn't Islam say your mother has the right? Yes. It doesn't say Jannah is right here. You want this or no? And you're like, fine. I'll give up my dreams, my aspirations, my business plans, my career, the person I wanted to marry, whoever. I'll give all of that up because my mom will not let me go to Jannah. Because when Judgment Day happens, my mother will stand there. Ya Allah, I know before the proceedings begin, I need to make sure. Is that how Judgment Day works, you think? When, the day on which everybody's running away from everybody else, your mom's going to stop and say, hold on, Ya Allah, hold on a second. I got an issue. She chose accounting. And I wanted her to choose medicine. Now we can begin the rest of Judgment Day. We've created this religious, emotional, hijacking type situation. And people think this is from Islam. You know what is from Islam? Nobody has a right to make something haram that Allah has made halal. And that's one of the gifts of Islam. That's one of its gifts. People in the mental health space, people that are studying psychology, people that are studying marital relationships and parental psychology and teen psychology, these experts are not talking about this concept. They call it boundaries. You have to set proper boundaries for yourself. You have to assert your rights. You cannot let somebody walk all over your rights. You cannot give somebody else domination and control over you, etc., etc. Allah already said it in one ayah. لِمَا تُحَرِّمُ مَا أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ لَكَ. And then the second ayah was about you, right? He turned to you and me and he said, قَدْ فَرَضَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ تَحِلَّةَ أَيْمَانِكُمْ. Allah is now making it mandatory for you. Now he turns to you and me. Allah has made it mandatory. فَرَضَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. He has made it mandatory for you. What did He make mandatory for you? تَحِلَّةَ أَيْمَانِكُمْ. To undo any promises you made. I am making it mandatory for you to break any promises you made, that you'd made something haram for yourself that Allah made halal, mandatory. Do it. Allah commanded us to be free. He commanded us to be liberated. Can you imagine? This is one of the most fundamental principles of the Quran, and is one of the most forgotten realities in Muslim cultures around the world. People are miserable. I hear this all the time. I can't believe how much I hear this. How many people are making choices in their life, not because they want to, but because someone else is forcing that choice on them, and their own choice is being made haram on them, even though Allah never made it haram on them. This kind of a control culture is actually oppression, it's dhulm. And one of the things that Islam came to do is to free us from the slavery of people and bring us into the slavery of Allah. Because when you're in the slavery of Allah, you're truly free from people. People have rights. My parents have rights. My spouse has rights. My kids have rights. But they don't have a right to trample over my rights. So long as you're not doing wrong to anyone else, you're not doing anything wrong. If your mom or your dad or your brother or whoever said to you, if you ever talk to your cousin again, I will not make dua for you anymore. Then you're like, well, you know what? Let's try it anyway. I know there's a saying, at least in Indonesia, there's a saying, it's better to say sorry than to say please. So just do it, then say sorry later. Hey, I called. Are you going to stop making dua? Yeah, why did you call? I'm not going to make dua for you. Well, that kind of dua hijacking doesn't exactly work, does it? Because it's not like Allah Azza wa Jalla lets an oppressor and gives an oppressor a guaranteed answer to their duas. It's not how it works. So this is the first Quran principle that I really want you to study, understand, and contemplate, and that comes from the 2 ayat of Surah At-Tahrim. To really understand, when Allah has made something halal, no one has the right to make it haram, not even our families. I can't make that for my children, they cannot make that for me, not my parents, not for me, spouses with each other.